Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our second class of our February series, Nervous System Reset. So in our first class, we did a deep practice of resetting the nervous system called body scan, or often called yoga nidra in the yoga community. And it was all about getting very still. And so we're going to build upon this stillness now and move gently into movement. So the image that came to my mind is caterpillar crawl, because we often just want to be the butterfly right away, right? Bursting out of the cocoon, fully expressed, knowing exactly where we're meant to be. But we have to start with the caterpillar first. We have to crawl before we can walk and walk before we can run. So it's taking these baby steps to reset the nervous system and to move toward greater resilience, greater spaciousness I would say greater spaciousness in the face of reacting. So feeling like we have some padding, our nerves aren't frayed, and we can handle what comes at us. Okay, so we're going to move very slowly and gently today. And I would recommend, if you have anything going on with the knees, to have a blanket that you can place under the knees, especially if you're working on a hard surface. Have a couple of blocks or books so that you can support lengthening in some of the poses. And other than that, just grab what you have, set your space. If you don't have props, don't worry about it. We will absolutely work around it. So grab what you have and I will meet you on the mat. Okay, so I said we're going to start slowly today. So we're going to start in a cross-legged position and hands are going to come to the knees. And we're going to inhale, slowly send the heart up toward the sky, lift the chin. And exhale, rounding, starting with the low back, then the mid back, then the upper back and neck. Just articulating through the spine in this way, inhaling from the low back, mid back to the upper back. Exhale, rounding, low back, mid back, neck, head heavy. Good. Inhaling, lifting up. Exhaling, drawing in. Inhaling, lifting up, opening. Exhaling, drawing in. So we inhale and open to receiving all the goodness, the grace, the healing available. And then we exhale, drawing it into our bodies. Good. Inhaling, receiving. Exhaling, integrating. One more deep breath in, opening the heart, lifting the chin toward the sky, and exhaling, drawing it into the body. And coming back to a neutral spine, placing both hands around the shoulders and just giving yourself a gentle hug. And you can gently rock or sway here. And I know that for me, the first few times that I did this, tears fell. So if you're feeling emotions move through you, just allow that. It isn't often that we turn our full loving attention toward ourselves. So it's a practice. And there may be some emotion that comes with it. And maybe you just repeat a couple of sweet phrases to yourself, like, I love you. You are so loved. You are so held and cared for. You're so beautiful. The light of your soul shines fully. I am so grateful for you. Good. And then we're going to come onto our hands and knees. So I'm going to set the blanket off to the side. If you need to pad the knees, go ahead. I'm placing the arms shoulder width apart, knees hip width apart, tucking the toes for a bit more grounding. Good. Spreading the fingers nice and wide. And let's move into a little bit of a deeper cat-cow. So arching the back, lifting the heart, and rounding the spine, letting the neck hang, wobble, release. Inhaling, moving the heart through and open. Exhaling, rounding. So just thinking of the caterpillar here. Not moving too fast. Just finding a steady rhythm. Good. Let's do one more here. And rounding, drawing in. And then coming back to a neutral spine, bringing the toes together and taking the knees wide apart. Tops of the feet come down to the mat. Take an inhale and lengthen the spine. And then exhale, moving the sit bones toward the heels. They may not reach, and that is perfectly okay. So just finding your natural stopping point, taking another breath in to lengthen the spine, and then exhale, surrendering the heart down to the mat. Coming into child's pose. Taking a couple of breaths here, really feeling up the back body. So breathing into this space on the back where the kidneys are. Right on top of the kidneys sits our adrenal glands. And so we're just sending life force and prana to these little tiny glands that do so much work and play such an integral role in our fight or flight response. Good. And then inhaling, looking forward. As you exhale, walk your hands off to the left side and fold. Taking a couple of breaths here and really breathing into that right side body. Good. Inhaling back up, walking your hands back to center for a breath. And then as you exhale, walk the hands off to the left and fold. Breathing into the left side body now. Releasing tension from the sides of the ribs, underneath the armpit, even in the neck and the traps. Good. And as you exhale, moving your way back to center, placing the hands and coming back into a tabletop position. Now from here, we're going to walk the knees back just a step or two, tuck the toes, and slowly lift up into our down dog. So first keeping the knees bent and just lifting the hips as high as they're willing to go toward the ceiling. So sending those glutes right on up toward the sky. Good. Then pressing into the hands and drawing the outer elbows toward the inside of the mat. So you're drawing them toward the center of your mat. It's going to move the shoulder blades away from one another and offer more strength and support. Letting the head hang heavy here. And as you feel ready, you can begin to lower the heels down. Good. And they may or may not reach, no problem. Keep a gentle bend in the knees. Don't lock them out. And if you would like to, take the feet a little bit closer to your hands and wider. So they're coming to the outer edges of the mat and you've shortened your stance. And this really allows the spine to unravel any tension. So just a couple of breaths here. You can sigh out through the mouth anytime. We're going to take the right hand now and bring it underneath the body, across, and to the outside of the left ankle. So just a gentle twist. You can begin to look toward that left armpit. Keep pressing through that left hand. And release, coming back to your down dog. Take a breath. And then we'll take the left hand over to the outside of the right ankle. Deep breath in as you exhale. Maybe you twist a little bit. Maybe your gaze comes toward that right armpit. Good. And releasing the hand back to down dog. Walking the feet back to hip width apart. Take a breath here. Inhale, look forward. And exhale, step the right foot to the front of the mat. Bend into that right knee and lower the back knee down. Good. And if you'd like to, you can take some blocks or books here and inhale as you begin to lift your torso up. So they can just be an extra source of support, grounding, stability. Good. And so we're getting some openness in the hips. without triggering the nervous system, because we've got these support, we've got these props to help support the weight of our body and our stability. Good. And then setting the blocks down to at least the second height if you had them as tall as I did. And we're going to begin to straighten the front leg, coming into a runner's lunge. So I'm going to move the block so you can see what my leg is doing here. It's straightening back. My right hip is moving back. And then my hands are going to be right about where my front ankle is. I'm going to inhale, lengthen through the spine, and exhale, lower down just a little bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. We're not trying to overstretch here. Just getting some circulation, some lymph moving through the body. Good. Bending back into the front knee, setting the blocks aside, placing the hands, and step back, down dog. Pause here. Let the breath settle. Let the neck loosen. The muscles of the face soften. And then inhale, look forward, and exhale, step the left foot to the front of the mat. So it may come halfway, and you may have to take a couple of steps to get there. And that's perfectly fine. You can even use the blocks to lift your chest off of your thigh, and it'll come through a little bit more easily. Dropping the back knee down, and then when you feel steady and grounded, lifting the chest off of the thigh, coming into your low lunge. Good. And just sending that energy from the pelvis down into the earth. Spine lengthening, crown of the head moving up toward the sky. Good. And then placing the hands down on the mat or on the blocks and beginning to straighten that front leg, coming into a runner's lunge on the opposite side now. Good. And keeping that left foot flexed, toes are pointing straight toward the sky. Left hip moving back, right hip moving forward. And you can gently melt the chest toward the shin. Good. And bending back into that front knee, placing the blocks aside, placing the hands down, and stepping back into your down dog. Good. Hanging out here for a couple of breaths. Good, and then bending the knees and slowly lowering onto your belly. Letting the legs come out flat behind you. Lifting up the right leg, stretching it toward the back behind you and setting it down. Lifting the left leg up, stretching through that hip and setting it back down. Let's take the hands out nice and wide. So coming off of the mat. And let's inhale, slowly open into cobra. And exhale, lower. Touching the forehead to the mat is a nice touchstone, and it's also very calming to the mind and the nervous system. Inhale, rolling up. Heart moving forward rather than straight up. So we're lengthening through the spine. And then exhale, fold. One more. Inhale, just gently undulating the spine, lifting the heart and moving it forward, out toward the world. Good, and lower down. Taking the left arm to the front of the mat, pressing the forearm down, and then bending the right heel toward the outer right glute. If you can, wrap that right hand around and reach for whatever you can. Toes, top of the foot, ankle, and just gently getting some deeper stretching along that hip line. And you can rest the forehead down onto your forearm. Breathing here. Good, and releasing that. Both forearms to the front of the mat and just gently rock the hips from side to side. And then right forearm stays down. Left heel comes to the outside of the left glute. Left hand wraps around and it maybe reaches the toes, the top of the foot, the ankle, the pant leg, whatever you can grab hold of. And maybe that's nothing, that's fine. You can just place that arm back down and let the heel move toward the glute. Forehead resting down on the forearm. Deep, full breaths onto your back body. Sending breath, energy, restoration to the kidneys, to the adrenals. Good, and then releasing that. Placing both forearms at the front of the mat and wiggling the hips out. Good. And then walking the hands next to the ribs, next to the chest. Inhaling, coming up, cobra. Exhale, pressing back into a child's pose. And allowing the forehead to rest here. If you'd like to, you can walk the hands around to the heels. Get a little bit of a stretch through the shoulders, through the traps. It also feels a little bit more like being in a cocoon. Good, and then slowly coming up to a seated position. Bringing the feet together, knees apart. And we're going to come into Baddha Konasana or butterfly pose, ironically. Maybe, maybe not. But this is a very restorative pose. So we're just gently going to flutter the legs, letting the hips begin to open gently. And then finding steadiness and stillness here. And the heels can be closer to the pelvis or further away, depending on what feels best for your hips and your knees. You can also offer some additional support to the knees by placing some blocks, books, pillows underneath them. And then inhale, lengthen through the spine. Maybe you'd like to stay here. Another option is to begin to lengthen through the spine and to move forward, walking the hands out in front of you. Finding the natural stopping point in your stretch and then rounding the upper back and dropping the head. Breathing here in Baddha Konasana. Letting everything go. Good. Walking the hands back toward you, releasing the blocks and extending the legs out in front of you. We're going to come into a forward fold with the legs straight here, Paschimottanasana. So if you'd like to, you can sit up on a blanket to support the hips. You can place a bolster or a pillow here. Nice support for the low belly, especially if you are on your cycle, for menstruating women, or if you've got some digestive stuff going on. You can also place some support here at the shins so that your forehead has something to rest on. So taking the option that feels best in your body, inhaling, reaching through the arms, exhaling, folding. Good. And just letting the shoulders come away from the ears, letting the upper spine lengthen out, release tension. Keeping the muscles of the face soft. Good. And inhaling slowly back up to center. Good. We're going to practice a little breath work together because I find this to be one of the most potent ways to reset the nervous system. So finding a comfortable seated position, that may be in a chair or sitting on the edge of a bed, or if you're on your mat, sitting up on something so that your hips open up a little bit more. Knees are below the hips. So if the knees are up here, let's put something underneath them or prop up the hips. And then settling in. Palms can be face down for grounding, or palms are up for a gesture of receptivity, of opening. And just settling into the breath here. Beginning to lengthen your inhale and lengthen your exhale. Maybe counting to 4. So inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaling 2, 3, 4. Inhaling 2, 3, 4. Exhaling 2, 3, 4. And continuing at your own pace to your own count. Giving the mind something to focus on can be incredibly helpful as we reset the nervous system. So counting can be really helpful as we're breathing. If you would rather repeat a phrase, one that I love to come back to is, I am loving awareness. So you could say, I am loving awareness on the inhale, and I am loving awareness on the exhale. And just taking a moment here as you breathe to gently scan down through the body, releasing any habitual tension, habitual clinging. Good. Keeping this steady rhythm you found in the breath. And if you practice in this way for just 3 minutes, that's all it often takes to shift out of fight or flight and into rest and digest, into the parasympathetic response. Good. And let's bring our arms around our shoulders once again, giving ourselves a gentle hug, a gentle caress. Maybe you rub your back or your shoulder a little bit. Bowing the head, just honoring the self, honoring all that you've experienced that has brought you to this point, honoring the journey, and honoring the space within you that can handle all of it. It's here. The spark is ignited, and we will just continue to grow it together. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. If you're enjoying these classes, please like and subscribe, and leave me a comment letting me know how this felt in your body, what ahas came through. If you have any questions, I love hearing from you. I'll also leave my email and Instagram handle in the description, as well as a link to my private Facebook group where we do weekly live classes together. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next class.